Dad, can someone change the world without anyone ever noticing? The question hung in the air, crisp and clear against the distant hum of freeway traffic beyond the sprawling backyard of Elon Musk's California home. Elon turned to find his son, X, sitting quietly on the edge of the wooden porch, his tiny feet dangling above the ground. The late afternoon sun bathed the garden in a gentle gold, casting elongated shadows behind the boy as he carefully arranged small stones into patterns only he understood. "What do you mean, X?" Elon asked, genuinely intrigued. "Like, if you make things better, but nobody sees you do it, is it still important?" X's blue eyes looked up at his father with a thoughtful, curious gaze. Elon paused, struck by the profound innocence and sincerity in the question. "Yes, I think so," he answered slowly, sitting down beside X, "maybe even more important." "Why do you ask?" "At school today, Miss Bailey asked everyone what they want to be when they grow up," X said softly, turning his attention back to his stones. "Kids said astronaut, doctor, or YouTuber." He shrugged slightly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I told them I wanted to be invisible." Elon felt an immediate pang of concern. "Invisible? Why invisible, buddy?" "Because invisible people fix things without needing attention," X said earnestly, his small fingers gently pushing a stone into place. "Like Mr. Nathan." Elon frowned slightly, searching his memory. "Who's Mr. Nathan?" "The school janitor," X replied simply. "He makes the school clean and safe every day, but no one ever says thank you. He just smiles and keeps helping. I think he might be a hero." Elon sat quietly, absorbing his son's words. His mind, usually consumed with rockets, batteries, and electric cars, suddenly felt humbled by his child's simple insight. "You know, X, I never thought of it that way," Elon finally said softly. "But you're right. Mr. Nathan sounds like a hero." The evening breeze whispered softly through the trees as father and son sat together, each lost in their thoughts. Later, after dinner, Elon couldn't shake the conversation from his mind. As he stood in the quiet of his home office, overlooking the city lights shimmering in the distance, he found himself contemplating the countless people he'd never truly seen, the ones quietly holding the world together. The next morning, Elon surprised everyone at the Tesla factory. He bypassed the usual executive meeting rooms and engineering departments, instead wandering quietly through the halls he'd rarely visited. It wasn't long before he found himself standing near a small break room, tucked away behind the assembly line. Inside was a woman, carefully wiping down tables and straightening chairs. She wore a worn uniform, her hair neatly tied back, movements slow and deliberate, almost reverent. "Morning," Elon said softly. The woman turned, startled, quickly composing herself as she recognized him. "Good morning, Mr. Musk." "Please, call me Elon," he smiled gently. "What's your name?" "Maria," she replied hesitantly. "I've been here about 5 years." "5 years," Elon echoed softly. "And what motivates you to do this every day, Maria?" She hesitated, her eyes briefly glancing away, then meeting his. "I clean so people can focus on making great things. My job is simple, but I think it helps them do theirs." Elon felt a gentle tug at his heart, a soft echo of X's words from the day before. "Maria, thank you," he said sincerely. "Your work matters more than you know." She blinked, clearly surprised. A soft smile spread slowly across her face. "Thank you, Elon." Driving home later that evening, Elon thought deeply about X and Maria. Their quiet wisdom stirred something profound inside him, a recognition that greatness wasn't always loud or visible. Sometimes, it existed quietly in the shadows, supporting everything else. That night, as Elon tucked X into bed, he asked gently, "Still want to be invisible when you grow up?" X nodded sleepily, yawning. "Yeah. Invisible like Mr. Nathan and Maria." Elon kissed his forehead softly. "Good choice, buddy. Good choice." As he walked out, Elon promised himself that from that day forward, he'd pay closer attention, not to the loudest voices, but to the quietest dreams. Change didn't happen overnight. But in the days following that quiet evening, Elon began to see the world through a different lens. At the Tesla campus, he initiated a simple but profound exercise. Every Friday afternoon, executives and engineers were invited, not required, but invited, to join a walk of thanks, a silent walkthrough of the facilities, from the gleaming show floors to the hidden corners of maintenance rooms. It was awkward at first. People weren't sure what they were supposed to notice, or if this was some kind of quiet evaluation. But Elon insisted, "We're not inspecting. We're seeing." The first Friday, only a handful showed up. But Elon led them anyway, nodding at every janitor, technician, and staff member who crossed their path. No speeches. No grand gestures. Just acknowledgement. By the third Friday, the group grew larger. Engineers whispered among themselves about the change they felt. Some said it felt strange. Others said it felt overdue. One Friday, as the group rounded a forgotten wing of the plant, they stumbled upon a break room unlike any they'd ever seen. It was barely more than a closet, a sagging couch, a flickering fluorescent light, and a battered microwave with a "Do Not Slam" sign taped to it. Old posters curled at the corners on the walls, and a small table sagged under the weight of mismatched coffee mugs. Elon paused at the doorway, heart heavy. This was where the invisible ones rested. The ones who swept the glittering halls after product unveilings, the ones who patched walls and fixed leaky faucets without applause. "We build spaceships and solar cities," Elon said quietly to his team, his voice steady but weighted. "But we let the people who hold it all together eat lunch on a broken couch." No one had an answer. They stood there in uncomfortable silence, breathing in the stale air of neglect. That night, after tucking X into bed, Elon sat alone on the back porch, staring up at the California sky. Stars scattered across the velvet blackness, countless and breathtaking. Yet he thought of the spaces in between, the darkness that allowed the stars to shine. Maybe the world needed fewer spotlights and more unseen hands. The following Monday, Elon convened a different kind of meeting. Not with engineers, not with the board, but with the custodial and maintenance teams themselves. They met in a sunlit atrium rarely used for anything but overflow during company parties. Elon arrived early and waited. Slowly, the workers trickled in, confused, wary, dressed in uniforms worn from years of service. "I asked you here because I realized something," Elon began, standing without a podium, without a slide deck. "We talk about changing the world, but we forget to thank the people who make sure the world doesn't fall apart beneath us." He paused, letting the words settle. "Starting today, that changes. New rest areas. Upgraded equipment. Health benefits for all maintenance and janitorial staff. A small scholarship fund for their children. And perhaps most importantly, a seat at the quarterly all-hands meetings, where their voices would be heard alongside the engineers and designers." The announcement was met with stunned silence at first. Then, one by one, faces softened, shoulders straightened. A woman near the back wiped her eyes discreetly. It wasn't just about money or facilities. It was about dignity. At home, X noticed the shift too. One afternoon, he spotted a janitor at the Tesla Visitor Center struggling to carry a heavy box. Without a word, X hurried over, his small hands reaching to help. The janitor, a grizzled man named Hector, knelt down and smiled. "Thank you, young man. Not many notice." X beamed. "My dad says real heroes don't always wear capes." Hector chuckled. "Your dad sounds like a smart man." Later that night, X told Elon about helping Hector. "I'm proud of you, buddy," Elon said, ruffling his son's hair. "Dad," X said thoughtfully, "someday, can we make a place where people who fix things have everything they need?" Elon smiled. "That's a good dream, X. And I think we're just getting started." Weeks passed. In break rooms and janitor closets across the company, small but powerful changes took root. Fresh paint. New furniture. Warm lighting. Little notes of appreciation tucked into lockers. The seeds of a quiet revolution had been planted, not with fireworks, but with small, invisible acts of respect. And slowly, quietly, the world around them began to change. But for Elon, this was only the beginning. He started to wonder, if one company could shift like this, what else could they change, outside these walls, and the bigger, messier world beyond? The idea took root slowly but deeply. Elon couldn't ignore it anymore, the vision of spaces, small but sacred, where invisible heroes could rest, recover, and remember their value. One afternoon, while sitting with X in the garden sketching rocket designs on scraps of recycled paper, Elon asked, "What would your perfect resting place look like, buddy?" X thought for a long moment. "Warm," he said finally. "And quiet. A place where you don't have to be brave all the time." That night, Elon stayed up late with a notebook in hand, drafting blueprints, not for factories, not for satellites, but for what he would call lightrooms. There would be small sanctuaries tucked into every major Tesla and SpaceX building, quiet rooms with soft chairs, muted lighting, small libraries, and music that played just above a whisper. No badges, no reservations. Anyone who needed a break could walk in and feel seen. The executive team was baffled when Elon presented the idea. "We already have lounges," someone argued. "Is this necessary?" Elon answered simply, "Not for the loud. For the overlooked." Construction started quietly, almost secretly. No big announcements. No press releases. Within a month, the first light rooms opened. Workers stumbled upon them by accident, hesitant at first. But word spread quickly. A janitor battling two jobs found solace there between shifts. A night security guard wept silently in a comfortable chair after receiving bad news from home. An engineer struggling with burnout rediscovered a long-lost love for poetry on one of the shelves. Each room carried a simple sign, "For those who carry the weight no one else sees." Meanwhile, X continued to embody the spirit of the project in his own small way. He made it a point to learn the names of the janitors and maintenance workers at every place Elon brought him. He wrote thank you notes in crayon, folded them carefully, and left them where only a cleaner would find them, tucked into mop buckets, slid under locker doors, taped onto dustpans. One Saturday, Elon took X on a surprise trip. They drove for hours until they reached a quiet SpaceX outpost, one of the earliest test sites, long forgotten by most of the world. The place was half abandoned, its halls echoing with memories of first launches and early failures. Elon and X walked hand in hand through the empty corridors, dust motes dancing in the shafts of late afternoon light. At the end of one hallway, they found it, a storage room hastily converted by workers years ago into an unofficial break spot. A battered chair. A small table. An old coffee machine. X stepped inside and turned slowly, surveying the space. "This feels lonely," he said quietly. Elon nodded. "It is. Can we make it better?" X asked, looking up. Elon smiled, his heart full. "We can." And they did. Together. They spent the afternoon sweeping, painting, and bringing in small comforts, a soft lamp, a bookshelf, a basket of fresh snacks. When they were done, X taped a note to the wall, "You are not invisible here." Elon stood back, gazing at the room. It wasn't much. But it was enough. Enough to remind whoever walked in that they mattered. Driving home that evening, Elon glanced at his son, who was humming softly in the passenger seat, tired but content. He thought about all the ways he tried to change the world, through ambition, through technology, through disruption. But maybe, just maybe, the most important changes started quietly. In corners. In shadows. In light rooms. And in the small, stubborn hearts of those who believe that healing a broken place, even if no one sees it, is the bravest thing a person can do. Months turned into years, but the light rooms never faded. In fact, they grew, tucked into new factories, expanded into launch centers, quietly finding homes in corners no one had thought to honor before. Without fanfare, without a single headline, lives began to change. At Tesla's Gigafactory in Texas, a night janitor recovering from cancer found a soft chair and a library full of science fiction that reignited his imagination. In SpaceX's bustling Hawthorne campus, a single mother working the night shift used a Lightroom to study for her engineering degree. And in every room, tucked on a small shelf, were the drawings X had made, simple, hopeful pictures of open hands, tiny figures sweeping stars back into the sky. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the golden leaves tumbled along the driveway, Elon and X walked together through one of the newer facilities. Workers passed them with warm nods, some carrying toolboxes, others carrying laptops, all of them moving with a little more pride, a little more ease. They stopped outside a Lightroom. Through the glass, Elon saw a young woman, maybe an intern, curled up reading a book. Nearby, an older maintenance worker was sipping coffee, eyes closed, breathing in the quiet. "Do you think they know?" X asked, tugging gently on Elon's sleeve. "Know what, buddy?" Elon crouched down to his son's height. "That they matter. Even when no one's looking." Elon smiled, his chest tightening in that familiar, bittersweet way. "I think they're starting to." Later that evening, as twilight pooled against the windows of their home, Elon found himself reflecting on how different this journey had been compared to the ones that made headlines. Rockets exploded. Cars transformed cities. Satellites blanketed the planet. But none of those victories felt as deeply human as this, the quiet building of places that honored unseen lives. He pulled out a notebook and wrote down a simple thought: the greatest revolutions begin in the quietest corners. Before heading to bed, Elon paused by X's door. It was slightly ajar, as always. Inside, X was asleep, a worn paperback book resting on his chest. Elon gently lifted it and smiled when he saw the title. The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. On the nightstand was another book waiting for its turn. The Second Mountain by David Brooks. Both books spoke of purpose beyond achievement, of lives measured not by noise but by meaning. As Elon stood there, a thought crystallized in his mind. It wasn't about building bigger, faster, louder things anymore. It was about creating spaces where people could breathe, heal, and belong. Lessons that stay. True impact isn't measured by applause, it's felt in the silent dignity you restore to others. Healing spaces matter just as much as building innovations. Sometimes, the greatest leaders are the ones who notice what everyone else has overlooked. If this story resonated with you, consider picking up one of these books. The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, a guide to embracing vulnerability and rediscovering the strength hidden in authenticity. The Second Mountain by David Brooks, an inspiring journey into living for something greater than yourself. Find them at your favorite bookstore or online. Because sometimes, the best investments we make are in understanding our own quiet power. And somewhere out there, across 100 light rooms glowing softly against the dark, someone paused, exhaled, and remembered. They were seen. They mattered. Even if no one else ever noticed.